Good evening. As we're settling in tonight for our Grief 101 sessions, we anticipate that this will take us out through the end of the year with our breaks and all of that wonderful stuff. So we're looking at about 6 weeks. Can y'all pull that door up, please? Thank you. About 6 weeks of study in this area, and we'll delve into what all that will entail in just a moment. I'll go ahead and pray. Almighty God, again, we thank you for allowing us another opportunity to come together in this place and for your presence to be felt in this space. We thank you for allowing us to see this evening and go through our entire day. Thank you for guiding us and protecting us along the way. God, thank you for this past Sunday and all that you gave us and allowing us to just glance at the backside of your glory. We pray, God, that you'll do that again for us. Give us an encore, if you will, oh God. Now bless us in this moment. Protect us, watch, and keep us. In Jesus Christ's name that we do pray. Amen. All right. So for the next 6 weeks, as I said, we're going to have a couple breaks in there. So let me go ahead and give you that schedule, what that's going to look like. We're going to have 3 weeks of class sessions like this. We're going to break out into small groups and in a couple of those. Then at the 4th week, we're going to have Thanksgiving. As you know, Thanksgiving always falls on a Thursday, and it has been our tradition, our historical tradition, not to meet on that Wednesday night. Because those of you that are making dressing, I need you to make sure that dressing is done properly. Those of you that are making stuffing, it don't make no difference because it's going to taste like it's going to taste, and God bless you if that's what you do. And you know, them greens and peas, greens, beans, potatoes, tomatoes, and we got to make sure that's right. So we take off that Wednesday prior to Thanksgiving. Then we'll come back the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd weeks of December. The last 2 weeks of December is our winter sabbatical where we take off until the end of the year. So that's why I say we'll have about 6 weeks of this is the way that I've planned it. I purposely try to do this during this time of the year because as we approach the Christmas season and the New Year, that's typically when feelings of mourning, if you will, and we'll talk about that, these feelings begin to erupt and they start to bubble up because we miss our family. We miss those folks that have gone on. And our mind circles back to those Thanksgivings at Big Mama's house. And if you had a mama like mine where everybody came to that house for Christmas, you feel some type of way because it's not like that anymore. And I want us to understand that it's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel like we feel. And as the academician that I am, the person who believes that knowledge is power and shared knowledge is powerful, I believe that the more you know about what you're experiencing, the better able you are to move through those feelings and know that you are recovering. That's how I am. I'm one of those that I sit up and I watch YouTube videos on how stuff works, just so I'll have a better understanding and feel more comfortable with it, especially when it has to do with airplanes and boats, because I love to be on both of them, but I like to know how they work. Amen. So that's what we're going to do. And I want you to not be afraid to ask questions, because some of this is going to be a little bit up here, but I'm going to break it down like I always do to help you understand what is being talked about. Don't feel like, and we're all family here, don't feel like what you ask or what you say is dumb. It's not. It absolutely is not. Because everybody in here is on a different level from intellect to spirituality and right on down the line. And some things may be funny that you say because you're going to laugh at yourself. Other things are going to bring tears to your eyes, and that's not a problem because we all get through the process of mourning differently. All of us are different. There are some folks who are stoic. Someone dies, they have the funeral, they bury them, and they're back to normal the next day, if not the same day. There are others who it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years. And when it takes longer periods of time, we'll talk again about that, what do we do in those processes? Understand what's going on and what are the benchmarks you should be hitting along the way. One of the things I don't want us to do at all is, well, actually it's a couple things. It may end up being three. One of the things I don't ever want us to say about anybody is they should be over that by now. Because death is not about the person, it's about the role that that person had in your life. I'll give you an example. Two people lose their mother. One person was close to their mother, talked to her every day, hung out with her on the weekend, this, that, and the other. The other person had a mother, and that was pretty much it. When both of them died, the experience is different because this person feels a void that is left by their best friend in some cases, dying and never coming back. The other says, well, that's another person in my life, I'm moving on. And it's true because some people do not have any type of relationship with their mother, with their father, with their brother, with their sister. And it's different for everybody, even within the same family. Three siblings can react totally different to the same death. And it's okay because we're not a monolith. We're not all the same. All of us, thank God, are not cut from the same cloth. As Lamont Sanford said, I'm me and you're you. And that's what makes the world go round. So we're going to dive into it tonight. I'm going to take it kind of slow because I want you to understand what are the principles, what are these definitions, what are these terms that people throw around so that we will understand exactly what's being said and what is being meant when we say this person is suffering from grief. This family is in mourning. That family is doing this, that, and the other. All right? Y'all ready? Good deal. Any questions before we get started? Any questions? I guess you say, I don't know what to ask because I don't know anything yet. We're going to solve that. By the end of the night, you probably have more questions than you have anything. And it's okay. Reach out to me in one of three ways. Not railway, trailway, none of that. You can reach me by text, reach me by telephone. You can reach me by email. You catch me, talk. Let's talk this out. Let me add this also. Never, ever, ever should someone say, I know how you feel. If you say that, I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to cut you with a dull knife. I am. Because that is the most insulting thing you can say to someone. You don't know how I feel about this particular death. And you can't say that ever in life. So if that is in your vernacular, to walk up, and they standing here and they looking and they put their arm around you, baby, I know how. No, you don't. No, you don't. Never say that again in life. Finally, I'm going to push probably every week, every other week, several times. I'm going to talk about psychotherapy. Black folk don't like to talk about psychotherapy. We think that's for crazy folks. Guess what? All y'all crazy. Some of y'all take medicine now. Some of y'all need some. But all of us are crazy in some way. Some of us got cards. Some of us got punch cards. Therapy will get you through what you think you can't get through. I'm not telling you something I heard. I'm telling you something I know. Because I was one of them, I don't need therapy. I'm good. I don't need therapy. And when I went to therapy, I felt like a brand new person. My blood pressure went down. Didn't have sugar diabetes. Didn't have to worry about that. I started losing weight, started going to the gym, getting my swole on. I'm doing my Terry Crews now. I'll tell y'all about that later. But yeah, psychotherapy is not a bad thing. It's not a dirty word. It helps. And if you're not quite ready for psychotherapy, you got a trained pastor that you can come talk to for free. Put your tithe money at work. Right? So I'm serious. No. I've been trained and licensed and blessed by the best. So come take full advantage of it. All right, let's talk about it. Give me the first slide. What is grief? It is the departure from the state of health and well-being. Just as healing is necessary from a psychological realm in order to bring the body back into a homeostatic balance, a period of time is needed to return the mourner to a similar state of psychological equilibrium. That's a lot of stuff there. Something, let me give it to you in a nutshell. Something has happened and you are reacting. Something has happened. Now, we're talking about grief and mourning, but this also applies when you have gone through a divorce, when you have lost your job, anything that causes grief. And grief can come from a number of sources. You break up with your boyfriend that you've been with for 120 years and they've been promised a ring and he didn't give it to you. And yeah, there's grief that goes along with that. So grief is the experience. Go to the next one. Grief is the experience of losing a loved one. So when someone dies, you immediately drop into grief. You start crying, you start having feelings of melancholy and all of that stuff. It is the experience. It is the overwhelming rush that comes over your body. The psychological and sometimes physiological effects of the reaction of a death. Mourning, on the other hand, is known as the process that a person goes through as they adapt to the death. So, Monday night, person dies. Grief sets in. The feelings are there. The crying is there. The long period and we'll talk about that too. I'm getting ahead of I tend to get ahead of myself. Between that Monday night and the time that person is buried, and even a week or two after, is known as the mourning period. Until you resume life like it was, without this person in your life, you are mourning. Mourning can take years if it's done wrong. Extended mourning. We'll talk about that probably next week. Bereavement is the definition, and I spell that wrong, of the loss to which the person is trying to adapt to. So, person dies, you go into grief. You bury that person, you're still mourning. It takes you another week to stay off from work because you still just can't, like life, you just can't get right. Can't get right. Put that back up for me, D. Not that one. There we go. The period of grief and mourning is known as your bereavement period. Okay? So there's a lot there. There's a lot. And the terms help us to understand what you're going through and what stage you're at. Usually, by the time that you have the interment, after the funeral, usually you can begin to come out of grief. As a pastor, I know that once we leave the cemetery, there's a lightening that occurs, meaning it seems that the air is lighter, that people can begin to smile, especially when they start eating their funeral home chicken, I call it. They get that chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and roll, and that pound cake in them. There's something that happens. Now, let's pause for a second and talk about the repast that usually happens after a funeral. That historically, in the African American community in particular, is the first meal that a mourning family eats after the death has occurred. So, if you go back to the 1900s, Big Mama died. The family literally stops eating because of the shock, the grief that they're going through. They normally don't eat. My dad told me when his grandmother died, he literally did not eat for 5 days. He sipped some water here and there, but for 5 days he did not eat. Once the funeral occurred and they buried Big Mama, all of a sudden something happened and he was able to get a little something in him at the repast. That's why repasts are so important a lot of times for families, because that's the first time that they're going to eat. Now, not so much anymore, because sometimes we keeping bodies out the ground 2 weeks. 2 weeks, you pose a field rat. And if you haven't eaten in 2 weeks, it's a problem. It's a little deeper problem. So yes, absolutely. Everybody still with me? So the definition of the loss to which the person is trying to adapt, as we used to say, give it a name. The name of all of what you're experiencing and going through in the time period is the bereavement period. You are mourning when you are adapting to the new norm, because it's a new normal. Particularly if this person lived in the house with you who God has now called home. And I say over and over again, we have not lost someone. They died. They're dead. Call it what it is. I love how Dr. Frank Anthony Thomas used to say it. He said in his book, and I've got the title, it's on the tip of my tongue because I use it so much. They like to never stop praising. He says, what we have to understand when we're preaching funeral sermons is we can't sugarcoat what's going on. Oh, we lost them. Well, they're going to a better place. No, they died. The body has ceased to exist, and we have to come to terms with that, even if it's in the midst of a funeral service. And we call it homegoings. We call it what we want to call it. At the end of the day, somebody died. They stopped breathing. They're no longer with us. And we have to come to terms with that. And that's difficult for people to do. Let's look at grief. Let's look at the characteristics of grief. Go to the next one for me. Thank you. Bodily distress, possible illness. When the death happens, you can literally catch anything in the first 24 hours. Statistics show if you're going to get sick, it's going to happen in the first 24 hours because grief is set in and your circulatory system does something weird, and all the defenses that you've had up all week long fighting off germs and COVID and flu, you can catch it like that because your defenses are down. Preoccupation with images of the deceased. People will go home and they'll get all the pictures of the deceased. Or now we got these beautiful cell phones and we carry them around with us. And you can see that they had those sliding shows on their lock screen of the deceased. And they're obsessed with them. And you're sitting in there quiet and looking at picture after picture after picture. That's a sign of dealing with grief. Is it wrong? We don't know. But we do know that that's how a person deals with it. When I lost my dog, Patches, I went into grief. Everything that Patches had, and it's a dog, I know y'all saying, well, that's a dog. You don't understand the role that he played in my life. That was my buddy. I was in grief. I know a good 2 days behind that. I had his blanket. I had his pillow. Everything that I could think of, I had it all around me every day. Because when I would come home, Patches would greet me and say, I'm glad you're here. Let's go to the bathroom. Patches was sitting beside me, tucked up under me when I was watching TV. That was my buddy. And I genuinely missed Patches. So I was preoccupied. I had pictures of Patches in my phone, pictures all in my office. I was going through grief. And it was okay because I had to move through that. Guilty feelings related to the relationship with the deceased or the circumstances of the death. Sometimes, and y'all, this is where Christianity has to play in. When you have crosswords with somebody and then they die before you can get it right with them, it's enough to kill you. I know of a case where this person was into it for whatever reason with this person, and this person went off and they didn't talk for a couple days and they died. And they never got a chance to say, I'm sorry. Never got a chance to say, let's fix this. They died with unresolved issues. That's why we as Christians got to make sure, that's why we're coming out of the debate of Satan, we fix stuff. Because unless you're a heartless scoundrel, that's going to bother you. That you didn't fix it before that person died. And we never know when our number is going to be called and when that bell is going to toll for us. That's why you got to be good to all people all the time. Bite your tongues, baby. Okay, we're going to move on from this because I don't want this on my conscience. Really. Every night I go to bed, I try to make sure, okay, did everybody that I deal with today, they okay? All right. Am I, yeah. Because I'm going to feel some type of way. If I wake up in the morning, they say, so-and-so died like, what? What's the next question? How they die? We want to know. Like it's going to make a difference. It ain't going to make a difference. So that's number 3. Stop asking folk, how did they die? If you ask me, I'm going to tell you. They stopped breathing. How else did they die? You can't die no other way. You stop breathing. Here's another characteristic of grief: hostility and anger. Now, some folks just cantankerous. Some folks just mean and surly. But there are other folks who are dealing with long-term grief, and they are angry at the world, and they will snipe you out. They're shooting at, let's see, I'm sorry, here we go again. Sade has this song out. It's long time ago. The song is called War of the Heart. And the lyrics in there says, I'm loaded, don't know where to point this thing. In other words, they coming out blazing. And they don't come out with the hope mentality. They come out with a wish. I wish it would say something to me. And you say good morning, and they... Because they're grieving. They're hurting. And we'll talk about why they're hurting when we get into the different stages of grief. Okay? Next one. Inability to function as before the death occurred. You can't resume your activity. When you get to the point where you can't do simple things, you're in deep grief. And don't say it couldn't happen to me. Yeah, it could happen to you. The strongest people cannot even tie their shoes when they're in deep-seated grief, when it's that close. See, if you've never really established a relationship with somebody and they're not close to you like that, and you don't have that connection, when they die, it's okay and you move on. But when I lost my dad, for the first couple days, I was a mess. I was a wreck. Simple things that I normally could do, I had trouble doing them. I had to think about what I was doing. And some of y'all have probably done the same thing. Something as simple as getting up, taking your medicine, and brushing your teeth. It became a chore. I became tired. The littlest thing wore me out. Look, I got to go sit down. I'm tired. Now I'm in the gym. I'm doing my thing. I'm riding 5, 6, 7 miles without even thinking about it. But when my dad died, it was just like, the energy was sucked out of the room. And it's difficult to deal with. You come out of it, but them first couple of days are hard. And what usually happens is you engage in what's called productive activity or industrious activity. You got to prepare for the funeral. You got to write the obituary. You got to pick out clothes. You got to pick out colors. And you know how we are in the black community. We got to either do T-shirts or we all got to match. So we got to coordinate. All right, look, I got this color. What color you got? I got this color. And then that becomes frustrating. And again, anger comes out of that sometimes as well. So any of these characteristics of grief can not only stand alone, but they can be compounded with one another. So not only are you angry and biting at folks, you can't function. Questions? Let's look at the next one. Other feelings that accompany grief. These are feelings, not characteristics. Characteristics is what we can see, what is manifested. Now, these are the feelings that accompany grief. Sadness or melancholy, that's obvious. You're going to be sad. You're not going to be at your best. You don't want to listen to slow songs because that makes you feel worse, and every song is going to remind you of that person. It's like going through a real bad breakup on steroids. It really is. Death is like that. You cannot achieve joy or happy feelings. Don't care how many times you play the song by Maze, you can't get happy feelings. Don't care how many times you play your favorite buck jump song, you don't feel like doing it. Anytime I don't feel like it. They can take you to the jumpingest party around. I don't feel it. It's good. Really just want to go home. You remember, everybody saw Boomerang? Remember when Eddie Murphy, they took him somewhere, old girl took him, he just kind of turned around, want to go back home. I just want to go back home and listen to my Sade records. Yeah, that's how you feel. You don't want to be, and you don't want to people. Let me say it another way. You hate peopling. Don't put people around you because you don't want to deal with them because they don't understand where you're at. And you feel like they're going to laugh at you for how you feel. It does not manifest as crying. You may not cry at all, so it's okay. But it's going to come out in some kind of way. It may not come out for 2 or 3 weeks, but it's going to break some kind of way. And you're going to know it because you're going to feel better once it happens. Go.
So with
It's going to sound funny, but you have to fake it till you make it. Because if you're the primary breadwinner, you know if you don't get up and go to work, then bills ain't going to get paid. You force yourself to do it. And ironically, there are some therapists that say that's the way to start to move through the mourning process, is to, as best as you can, get back to normal. Because once the body is buried and the last slice of pound cake has been eaten, there should be a lifting that happens. And now you should be able to function at a higher level. Should. Now we're going to talk about complex grief and all of that in just a few. But if normal grief is happening, then you should be moving through it in some kind of way. If it's not, then you got to sit down with somebody and figure out why. Somebody trained to figure out why. Okay. Does that help? Other questions? Okay. Normal laws of competitive behavior are suspended. What does that mean? I don't feel like playing pickleball. Anybody knows me knows I am a pickleball fanatic. I am competitive. I play to win. I'm just letting you know I will run over an old person or a child to score. I'm just saying. I do it. Yeah. That's me. But if I come in and I'm sitting there and I'm really not feeling it, or when I'm playing, I could care if I win or lose. There's something going on. Grief is being manifested in those feelings. You don't want to be line leader when you're driving anymore. An aggressive driver all of a sudden becomes a Sunday driver. That happens. You don't care who wins the football game. Yeah, it's on. Mm-hmm. And you have to watch out for that. And notice that in yourself. If you no longer, things that used to bring you joy, they don't bring you joy, you might be in some long-term grief, which is not good because long-term grief has physiological effects. Talk about those in a little bit. Next one. Blocking sadness through immersing yourself in work or other activity generally fails at night when the downtime comes. Let me give you a song. I got songs for everything, just so you know, all right? I believe his name is Bobby Womack. When the skeletons come out of your closet and chase you all around the room. Yeah, if you think you're lonely now, wait until tonight. Okay, yeah. That's what we're talking about. When you, my former cardiologist used to say, the 12 o'clock midnight hour is called the bewitching hour. Because if you're going to get sick, you're going to do it at midnight. And it's not because you're trying to get out of work the next day. It's just the way the body is. If you're going to feel something, it's going to happen at night when nothing else is going on, when whatever you normally watch on TV you can't pay attention to, and you're going to bottom out. It's perfectly normal. Perfectly, but it can't last long term. Don't let it last long term. Okay? All these can lead to what's called complicated mourning, or if unchecked, can lead to clinical depression. Who's got the sheets? There's the little single sheet I gave you, and I didn't get one. Let me get one. Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk about this grieving process. And I'm going to tell you later on that the grieving process really is not a process. So a lot of things that we're still learning about it all. So it says at the top, grief is the natural emotional response resulting from a significant loss, especially the death of a loved one. Can you mourn another life event? Absolutely. If you've been, and I saw this, literally, I saw this. A police officer had been on the job for 42 years, and because of some unfortunate circumstances was basically asked to retire or be fired. After 42 years, you're not going to lose your pension. You're going to fill out that paperwork. Within 3 months, they were dead. DEA found them in the chair, dead. They went through long-term grief. They grieved their job. They weren't married. They didn't have kids. The job was their life. And it happened. When your job goes away, you can grieve yourself literally to death. Okay? So everyone deals with grief differently. People laugh, people cry, they busy themselves with work, they throw up, they even feel numb. Some recover quickly while others take their time. Grief is a natural healing process, and there is no right way to do it. And you may feel none of these things and be in grief and not know it. So let's jump down. There are 3 levels of grief, and this is what I was talking about. First of all, you've got acute grief. It means immediately after a loss and for months thereafter. It's normal to have intense symptoms of shock, distress, sadness, poor appetite, sleep trouble, and poor concentration. These symptoms will slowly diminish with the passage of time. Don't try to rush it, but be aware of it. Okay? Yeah, some folks literally get down to eating so little that they be too poor-to-toted. You know what that means, don't you, Kate? That's a Southern phrase. Yeah. They look like they've been in bad health. Look like they've been smoking crack. Yeah. Real thin, real small, real frail. Watch, folks. That's why we got to do an excellent job when someone dies, paying attention to the deceased family. Because if they come in one week and they close a baggie and hanging off, they're probably in long-term grief. We got to watch out for that. They're not eating. They're not sleeping. They're not getting what they need. We got to pay attention. But it will subside after a couple months, 3 months, 4 months. When it goes into 7 or 8 months, now we need to start doing some intervention. Yeah. Look at the next one. Complicated grief. Sometimes the symptoms of acute grief never seem to go away. They can last for years. Loss of a loved one continues to feel unreal and unmanageable. You might constantly yearn for the deceased or experience guilt about the idea of moving on or accepting the loss. Some folks don't want to move on, and they feel guilty. I can't, because I would be doing this to him or her. They would not feel good if I did. They would not be in agreement. They want you to live your life. I don't know unless somebody told you, don't go on without me. I think everybody in here has had somebody that was about to die and said, go on without me. Live your life. Get married again. Date again. Yeah, because you need to move on. Stop feeling guilty. Because as we, and let me give you this preview, this as we say, I'm going to give you a cliffhanger so you can hang for a while. One of the modules that we're going to do are the 12 steps of alcoholism, or the 12 steps of mourning. And one of those is accept the fact that they're gone and that you had nothing to do with it. You could have wished, hoped, gave a kidney and a liver, and they still were going to die. And we have to accept that they were going to die no matter what we do. And then we go into the symptoms of grief from there. Integrated grief. After resolving the most intense symptoms of acute or complicated grief, you will enter the lifelong stage of integrated grief. Everyone in here, if you've experienced a loss, you are in integrated grief. Okay? If that loss was 30 days ago and you have started to move on and you feel okay, or it has been 30 years ago and you're moving on, this is integrated grief. Because if you, and I do this a lot, if you quote what your deceased person would say, or you think about them at least once a day, you're still in integrated grief, but it's not a problem because that's normal. Everybody is in integrated grief. It's when you hang out in complicated grief when there's the problem, okay? So it's not a problem to wake up in the morning and say, man, so-and-so just crossed my mind. And they probably gonna cross your mind a few times. But when they cross your mind and you no longer cry or break down or have to go in a corner by yourself, now you're in integrated grief. You're okay now. You're moving into a better space. At this point, you have come to accept the reality of the loss and you've resumed daily activities. This doesn't mean that you don't miss your loved one any less, or that you don't feel pain at their memory. You've just learned how to cope. Acute grief may show itself again, especially around holidays, anniversaries, and reminders. Death days usually are big ones too. Without knowing it, my whole day is just different on the day that my dad died. I don't know. And I never realized it until the end of the day. I said, oh man, today was the day Dad died. That's why I felt weird all day. That's why I couldn't get it right. And it'll happen for one day, and the next day things are back to normal. But it's okay. It is okay. Do not try to punch yourself out of that or move through that, because it is a legitimate part of your healing process. Okay? All right. Hang on to that and refer back to that as often as you need to. All right, so let's talk about some of these feelings that accompany grief, starting with anger. It comes from two places. Frustration that there was nothing that the person could do to prevent the death, or two, regression that is accompanied by panic and anxiety. How dare you leave me alone? Let that hang for a minute. Put that back up for me, D. No matter what you do, you can't keep somebody here when God is calling them home. I don't care what you do. You can't change nothing. And here's the other part. They got to live their life until God calls them home. And nobody has contributed to that unless they literally walked up and killed them. That's a different set of circumstances. But if they died through natural causes and a natural progression of health and life, because, we are, from the moment we're born, we start deteriorating. And it comes to its full culmination at death. You got a limited time on this earth. Recognize that. Everybody does. Or regression. When you have them, how dare you leave me? I feel like that every now and then. I get angry. Thank God I'm usually to myself, because I want to ask my daddy one more question. And you do too. Whomever that person may be in your life. You need one more question. That's why Luther, if I could dance with my father again. That's the impetus behind that. You want one more opportunity. If I could get one more glance, one more talk, one more whatever, it would make everything all right. But guess what? It won't. Because just like ice cream and potato chips, you're going to want more. One is just not enough. I don't know nobody that can reach in a bag and get one potato chip. Next one, guilt. Not being kind enough. That's one that gets everybody. And that will literally keep you in grief when you think about how you treated this person when they were alive. And then God calls them home. And you're like, man, I coulda, shoulda, woulda. Not taking the person to the hospital sooner. I saw you and you weren't doing good, and I should have got up sooner. You could have gotten there the day before. Preoccupation over something that was neglected just before the loss. Mama told me to go to the grocery store, and I told her I didn't have time. I came back, she was gone. Maybe that was her way of getting you out the house, because she knew that you couldn't handle it when God was calling her home. There is a theological premise, and I can't think of the name of it because it's some big word that I forgot. But there's a theological premise or idea that says God whispers in the ear of the person before they leave. That's what they believe happened with Dr. King on his in his mountaintop speech in Memphis. That God had whispered in his ear and said, your time is near. God whispered in Malcolm X's ear and told him, don't fight it. That's why when the men came up and began shooting him when he was on the stage, he didn't move. Malcolm X was a slick joker, but he stood there and took every shot because it is believed that God had told him, sit still. So there's a belief that God let you know, I'm coming for you, and it will be soon, and very soon. Indeed, when the person did something to cause the death, if you run over somebody, hit them with a car, if you poison them, and then try to run back and say, wait, don't eat me, and they done ate the bowl clean. Something just awful. Yeah, you should feel guilty. You should. But understand, in spite of all of that, guilt only lingers for a little while unless you're the cause. And guilt also lets us know that we're human. Because if you did something to cause this person's death and you don't feel anything, you're a monster. Next one. Next slide. Anxiety. Fear that one cannot take care of their self without the deceased. There are some folks that are so connected to whomever that they feel like they can't go on without them. And I know that because I woke up every morning, the last year and a half of my daddy's life, and before I got out of the bed good, I'm calling him. Hey, how you feeling? What's this? What's that? I'm checking on him. Well, how's your vitals? How's this? How's that? And then after he died, when he went into the hospital, I felt neglected for a while. And then when he died, I felt like I had no purpose anymore for a while. Because it was my job to watch over Daddy. Every morning, we went through a ritual. Every evening, we went through a ritual. My day was bookend handling my daddy. And when he left, I felt like I had nothing left to do, even though I had 2 young boys and a wife in the house that I had to continue to live for. A heightened sense of personal death awareness, personal mortality. You feel like you the one that's coming next. You be at the funeral, and they, baby, I'm coming, save me a seat. No, don't save me no seat. I'm good. Stand there talking about, take me, and I bet you somebody touch you, you be ready to shoot them. You do, for sure. Yeah, heightened sense of personal death, your own mortality. And I try to say it at funerals because it lets us come face to face with our own mortality. It reminds us that we all are going to leave here and we need to get our stuff straight. The problem is a lot of folks leave a lot undone. They have the philosophy that they're going to live forever, and so far so good. But we all are going to leave here now. We should not obsess with that. We should not get into a mode where we're always thinking about it. So we're waking up in the morning trying to make sure the policies are right, make sure everything's right. You should not be doing that. Once you get your affairs in order, leave them. Let go. Do something else. Because when the time comes, it's already out of date. You don't believe me? Ask some of the funeral directors. Now, unless you got a pre-need, of course. But that stuff is out of date because things have changed. New friends have come into your life. You want new things. You saw something at somebody else's funeral that you want to add to yours. Stop obsessing over your own funeral and your own death. It's going to come when the time is right. But until then, live until you die. Next one. Loneliness. That's a big one, y'all. Loneliness. Survivors of long-term marriages and relationships. If you've been married any period of time with somebody, you're going to feel something. You're not just going to walk away from that thing and be like, it's okay. No, you're not. And this is also why I say, if you've been in a divorce, going through a divorce, yeah, you're going to feel some loneliness. I don't care how big of a scoundrel that person was. That was my great-grandfather would say. I don't care how much of a scandalous and a shame he or she was. You're going to still feel something. You're still going to miss them. You're going to have a moment where you still want them around, even though they didn't do you right. Fatigue, apathy, or listlessness of a very active person. If you always bouncing, running, going, and all of a sudden you're sitting around a lot, that's a sign that you're in long-term grief. Helplessness. Can't do nothing for yourself. Baby, why the bills behind? I just ain't felt like doing them. Okay, so you feel like sitting outside when they come and set your stuff out. I'm sorry, when they evict you, because I'm in the north. I'm in the north. When they evict you, you're going to feel like it then. So that's why we have to go in and help folks. Make sure that their bills are not falling behind. And it's not due to money. 9 times it's not due to money. It's just, I don't know how to do that stuff. He did it. She did it. She was responsible. He was responsible. Okay, now you got to be responsible. And what you do is you act as a training wheel, not as the whole bike. Stay for a while, help, get them going, get out the way. Because how do you help a baby learn to eat? You help them a few times, and after a while, they don't want your help. In fact, they look at you when what you doing? What you doing? Yeah, and then they can eat for themselves. Shock, primarily in a sudden death. This typically happens when somebody dies suddenly and out of nowhere. And of course, all deaths are out of nowhere. But if they're on an airplane and they're flying and the plane crashes, that's sudden death. They're driving down the street and a cement truck hits them and kills them on the spot. They're DRT. That's a sudden death. You know what DRT is, right? Okay. Dead right there. Next. Yearning. Some of y'all will catch you on the way home. Yearning, a desire to join. Yeah, again, baby, here I come. I'm coming behind you. Save me a seat. No. Emancipation, the death of the deceased is removing a curse of tyranny. And that's a real feeling, and it's valid. Because if he been beating your tail for the last 20 years and the Lord decides it's time for him to go to sleep, all of a sudden you feel grown again. And you should. Of course, you need more therapy for the beatings than you do to death. Because, that's when you put on them red bottoms and you come outside and you say, I got it together now, baby. Relief. One that has suffered a long or painful illness. I mean, that should be a long, two separate words. If people who are dealing with cancers and things like that, and it's just day after day of care, day after day, and then finally the Lord releases them from that. You get a sense of relief because you can say, finally, okay, Lord, let them rest. And you can rest too because you've been running and gunning and doing without and making sure they got. Of course, numbness, early in the grieving process caused by the overwhelming feelings. That's when people say, well, are you okay? How do you feel? I feel, no, I don't feel anything. And that's when you are so devastated that tears can't even form in your eyes. That's a hard thing. That is a hurt that is uncharacterized by any words that anyone can come up with. And I'm sure at least 20% to 50% of us have felt like that at some point when we're dealing with a death. I think I got one more slide. Do I have one? Yeah, there we go. And those are the physical sensations: a hollowness in the stomach, tightness of the chest, tightness in the throat, oversensitivity to noise. Shut them kids up. Shut them kids up. But you was wanting them to holler and jump a few minutes ago. Nothing seems real. Depersonalization, short of breath, weakness in your muscles, lack of energy, dry mouth, hallucinating. Did you see her come back? She just came in here. Huh? No, baby, she at the funeral home. No, she ain't. She laying in the bed. I just saw her. Hallucinating. Their mind is not ready to wrap around the fact that person is deceased. Next slide. Some of your behaviors. I'm going over just a little bit just so that we can finish this section, if y'all don't mind. Sleep deprivation or insomnia. You go days and days without getting sleep. And when we say sleep, there's two sides to that. There's rest and there's sleep. Many of us go to sleep. Rest doesn't come all the time when we go to sleep. Loss of appetite, absent-mindedness, social withdrawal, dreams of the deceased. That is not always such a bad thing, okay? It is okay to dream about the deceased. It's not a good thing to dream and obsess about the deceased. I dream about my mom and daddy often. I really do. Avoiding reminders of the deceased. You don't want to see pictures. You don't want to see leftover. You just whatever's in the house, just let it go. That's a behavior. Searching and calling out. Where are you? Why did you leave me? What are you doing? Come get me. That kind of thing. Sighing and deep breathing. You ever hear that? People just say, that's a behavior. Restless hyperactivity. They can't stop. They got to clean. No, I got to do this. No, can you sit down? No, I got to do this. I got to wash the clothes because, they're trying to keep themselves busy and keep the mind busy so that they can settle themselves, and it never happens. That's like chasing that high. You get a high, but then you need to chase another high that's higher than that. Then you chase another high, and you start multitasking, and the next thing you know, you start crying. You sit down and you say, I can't do it all. It's not because you can't do it all. It's because your mind has said you need to do these things, and you can't. And your mind finally says, okay, well, I give up. Next slide. Visiting places or carrying objects of the deceased. If that helps you to cope with the death, then it's not a bad thing. As long as you get to, I can't read now, integrated grief, you're okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There are some things of my dad's I still carry. And it doesn't send me backward, it keeps me moving forward. Treasuring objects or belongings of the deceased. Involvement in reckless activities. All of a sudden, you want to go through a midlife crisis, and you 80 years old. You going to go get on a motorcycle. You want to go skydiving. Yeah. Your husband died 3 weeks ago. Now you want to go skydiving. Really? Relationship seeking. What's the old adage? When you get out from under one person, the way you get better is get up under another one. No, it don't work like that. That is the worst absolute thing that you can do. Seek relationships after you have worked on yourself, because you are damaged goods and you are toxic, and you will make whomever you're with toxic. Worst thing you could do is, after you have been experiencing a serious, bad, horrible death in your family or outside your family of someone very close to you, is to immediately jump into a meaningful relationship with somebody else. It's not a good thing. Give yourself some time to recover and breathe and get yourself together, because the worst marriages are the ones when you jump out of one into another. Yeah, take some time. And I'm going to say it because I'm going to pick on them, because I say it all the time. Kojic are the worst. They can't stay single. They cannot. 3 weeks later, they done found somebody else and they're moving on. Take your time, baby. It's okay. Ain't nobody really, folks looking, but it's mind over matter. Those that mind don't matter, and those that matter don't mind. Hey, there you go. Last one. Let's see. Where are we here? Because I may need to just stop right there. Is that the last one? Yep, grief process. That's the last one. Okay, so in actuality, as a wrap-up for tonight, we should view the process of grief as the experience, what we feel, and not the process. So you're not going through grief. You are going through the process of mourning, which encompasses all of the things that you feel, all of the things that you see, all the things that you're doing. Grief is but one aspect of the mourning process. It is usually occurs in the middle, in the beginning, and it should fade out as time goes on, as the mourning process, which is the systematic way we move to healing and to recovery. Okay? Questions? We say semantics, but it really means something. Words mean something. That's why I wanted us to have the terminology, the nomenclature, to explain and to express what we're actually going through. So if you come to me and say, Pastor, I am still grieving, I know exactly what you're talking about. You can't get right. But if you say the mourning process seems longer, then there's a bigger picture that we have to look at, and we deal with that as we need to. Okay? Final questions. Only went over 8 minutes. Cool. All right. Next week, we'll come back in again. 10 after, please, if we can get started at 10 after. That way I can get through the Kubler-Ross model and talk about what that means, what that looks like, and we can have some discussion back and forth on that. Okay? Let us stand. And on tonight, God, I know that someone here is in a stage of grief, whether it's early on or it's in the long-term section, or God, they may be experiencing just enough to keep us off balance. I pray that you enter into their heart and help them to have peace and find peace. God, there's someone who's angry right now over the death of someone close to them. Bring peace into their house, into their home, into their heart. There may be someone right now, God, that is about to experience a death. I pray that you send your angels ahead and send prevenient grace and prevenient mercy, so that the grief process or the grieving will not last as long as it probably could. God, watch over and keep us as we leave this place, and we look forward to coming back and being in your presence. It's in the Christ Jesus' name we pray. Collectively, amen.